Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And the AFC South has been quite an interesting ride so far. As you can see, the teams have gone up and down like, a roller coaster. But I did want to kind of observe the AFC South. And of course, there is a big matchup between the Colts and the Titans as well. I wanted to bring someone in that has a keen eye on the AFC South, knows it probably like the back of his hand. That would be Mr. Ben Arthur from Fox Sports. What's going on, man?
What's up, Mike? Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for coming on. Now, of course, if you want, man, you can give everyone your background, kind of how you got to Fox Sports in terms of the different places you've been, kind of leading up to it.
Yeah, for sure. So I just started at Fox Sports a couple weeks ago, 2, 3 weeks ago. So still fairly new in this role. Before that, I was covering the Titans for the Tennessean for the last year and a half. And then before moving to Nashville, I was working in Seattle, which is where I'm from. I was covering the Seahawks for SeattlePI.com, where I covered the Seahawks from the 2018 to the 2020 season. And so my experience covering the NFL dates back to then. And then before that, had a job at kind of a small news outlet in on the border of Texas and Mexico. That's a whole nother story. My first job out of college. And yeah, that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. Went to the University of Portland, graduated 2017. And like I said, the NFL journey started in 2018. So yeah, that's kind of the short of how I kind of ended up to where I am now.
Got you. I still, funny thing is, I don't know if you remember, but I remember seeing you when you first got to the Tennessean. Actually, my day job was actually in the same building at that time. So I still remember you walking in at the Tennessean and was like, who's that guy? Actually, at first, I thought you were like a high school kid walking in and they were just doing an intern.
No. It's funny because I remember you mentioning that too. I think when you were out at Titans during was it training camp or OTAs or something? And honestly, for whatever reason, I don't remember that. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad we've been able to kind of get to know each other a little bit. But yeah, man, what exactly did you do in the building again? I'm trying to remember.
Oh, well, I want to kind of keep that on hush hush. That's the government stuff, man. I'm just playing. I'm playing. I work in the day job. I work in the financial field.
That's okay.
Yeah,
got it.
No, I was being silly, man. I'm not working for the FBI or the CIA or nothing like that. No.
Hey, no. I didn't know. I mean, you could have been. It would have been all right. All right then. What needs to be said.
Nah. I don't think I had the patience to learn all that different stuff and be as coy as they can be. They got that. But speaking of interesting things in terms of life and watching, the AFC South has been something interesting to watch. You had the Jaguars coming out strong. You had the Titans and the Colts stumbling out the blocks, and you had the Texans just being the Texans. But what can you say just about the AFC South in the first 6 weeks?
Yeah, it's kind of like you said. It's kind of been a roller coaster a bit. I think. Well, I'll kind of take two different ways to kind of break this down, because I think if you're not familiar with the AFC South and like entering the 2022 season, you would have said, "Oh, the Colts on paper are probably the best team in the division." With all the talent they have, the guys they have coming back, adding Matt Ryan into the fold, adding Stephon Gilmore into the fold. Oh yeah, that's the best kind of team on paper. But then you look at that, then you consider people who've actually been following the division. Kind of how the Colts have always seemed to fall short of expectations, and for whatever reason. I mean, we saw last season when they fell to the Jags. In just that stinker at the end of the season, had 7 Pro Bowlers and whatnot. And so the Titans, I think if you're kind of familiar with the division, you're like, oh, it's probably the Titans to lose. But then we get started with the kind of the 0-2 start for both the Colts and the Titans, it's like, oh, okay. I mean, everyone kind of knows the AFC South isn't very good. It's probably um, it probably draws the least attention of any division in the NFL, and I don't think that's up to debate. But then you saw the Jags kind of have their little run going, right? That they won those 2 games by 20 plus points, and it's like, oh, maybe it's the Colts are kind of underperforming again. The Titans don't look right, in the Jags. Oh, they have a new coach, Doug Peterson. Trevor Lawrence has seemed to take another step. They have a good defense. They've won 2 straight at 20 plus. Maybe they're the team, the quick ascending team. But then the Jags kind of started to lose, like kind of same old Jags, right? And now they've lost 3 straight. And the Titans have now won 3 straight, and the Colts have won 3 of their last 4. And so I think we're starting to see kind of the division level out again to where it's really the Titans to lose and the Colts seeing if they can kind of overtake the Titans. And so I think that backstory is kind of important for this Titans Colts matchup this weekend, with the Titans having won the last 4 matchups. It's actually the Titans' longest winning streak against the Colts in the rivalry's history. But yeah, that's kind of what this division has been. It's kind of been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of like not so good football. As you kind of said, the Texans are kind of the irrelevant team, because the Jags, even though they've kind of gotten back on like a losing streak, I think that they've still kind of shown improvement in that they're maybe somewhat competitive. But it's really kind of a lot of bad football, honestly. Like the Titans just find ways to win games. The Colts, they've had so many offensive issues. I mean, they finally figured it out, and we'll probably talk more about this, right? Against the Jags. But they needed Matt Ryan to throw the ball so much. But for the most part, right, we haven't really seen the offensive line perform. Jonathan Taylor hasn't really been able to get going. Darius Leonard, or I should say Shaquille Leonard now, hasn't played. He's only played like 16 snaps this season.
Right.
And so yeah, it's honestly, man, kind of the long way to answer your question. It's really kind of hard to say what this division is. I mean, it's really just going to be who I think does kind of the best in the division games, because I think we both kind of know maybe in the AFC they're not really going to be, at least in the win-loss column, maybe not be like the Bills or the Chiefs, a team that maybe jumps out like that. But I think whoever can control the division games is going to kind of be the one who ends up coming out of this. And so yeah, that's kind of what this division has been. It's kind of been a mix of a lot of things.
Right, definitely. Now, as far as the team you spoke of a team that has won a division back-to-back years. We're going to get to the other team that they're going to be facing this weekend, but we're going to talk about the Tennessee Titans. They started off 0-2, then they went 3 in a row, then they hit the bye week. Do you think that bye week hit perfectly for them, or do you think that maybe they should have that they would wish it would be later in the year because they were kind of rolling at that time?
I mean, with the bye week, it's kind of like, I mean, you just kind of have to deal with it, right? I mean, last year, I think everyone would kind of say, oh, the bye week kind of came at the perfect time because they had played 12 straight games or whatever, and they had just a ton of guys on injured reserve, and they needed guys to get healthy. But even this year, even though it's an early bye, they really needed it. They have, I don't quite remember off the top of my head where they rank it in terms of guys on injured reserve, but I know they're in the top 3. So they've had a lot of guys hurt, right? They lost Harold Landry right before the opener. They lost Taylor Lewan from the Bills game. Treylon Burks is out for a few weeks. So
Grayson McMath still hasn't played.
Exactly. Racey McMath still hasn't played, and he's probably not going to come. If he does come back, it's not going to be until later this season. And so this is a team that did need the bye, even though it kind of came early. So we'll kind of see who they get back. I mean, Mike Vrabel didn't really reveal a whole lot, and he's kind of always like that with injuries. But I think Elijah Molden has a chance to kind of get back. Bud Dupree has been practicing again. I think Bud Dupree is a guy who hasn't really been able to live up to that contract, right? That 5 years, 80 plus million to kind of be that top pass rusher. He was never really fully 100% last year. You thought coming into this year he was 100%, but then he has another setback. He has the hip issue. He's been practicing this week. He was full go today. We're recording this on Wednesday. That's kind of promising considering a Titans pass rush that's already kind of played well without him. And I think that's one of the biggest stories of the Titans, how well their pass rush is playing despite not having Bud Dupree really out there. Harold Landry hasn't been there this season, and Ola Adeni, one of their top backups, has kind of had an neck issue when he was just placed on injured reserve as well. How Rashad Weaver has really emerged. He's the team leader in sacks. And then Danico Autry and Jeffrey Simmons have kind of wreaked havoc as we expected they would. But I think that group up front has really played well. And you get Bud Dupree, who appears to be healthy now. I mean, we still kind of have to see for the games, but he's kind of back in the mix now. So yeah, I mean, I think whenever you have a bye week, it'll help a team. And even though for the Titans it was kind of early, I think they're definitely going to reap the benefits of that.
Gotcha. Now, I will say this, of course, with the bye week, you do have a lot of times to tinker with a few things. And I'm wondering, do you think the Titans coming out of the bye week will kind of show off a few of the little tinkers they've done and kind of been working on?
I mean, you have to hope so. I mean, they are 3-2. They have so many issues. As you know, they can't score in the second half. They're still worst in the league in second half scoring. They're actually they have the number one red zone offense in the league, but they also get to the red zone the second fewest times in the league. So that's a problem when you can't get there. And then I think defensively, that pass defense, all those explosive plays over the top of the DB's heads, that's probably the number one issue. And Mike Vrabel said that this week, saying that's kind of like the number one priority, cleaning up and limiting those X plays. And I think getting Amani Hooker back, he cleared concussion protocol. And I think he's really going to help shore up that back end, help out Kevin Byard, help out those kind of young cornerbacks. So yeah, I mean, there are definitely things that need to change. I mean, this is a team that seems to just each of their wins has come just in dramatic fashion, right? They're not winning with comfort. They're ugly wins. You just talk about that, and there's a lot that kind of needs to be done. But I think from a pass defense standpoint, I think that's where we could maybe see the biggest changes. And obviously getting Amani back, I think that's going to help shore up the back end.
Definitely. They don't call him the tight end stopper for nothing. So, and that's a piece of the Colts that actually exploded on the Titans in the last matchup, of course, with Mo Alley-Cox definitely having one of his best games. Now, I'm going to flip over to the Colts, and you mentioned it earlier. The Colts beat the Jaguars 34-27, but Matt Ryan had to throw the ball 58 times. I mean, I'm surprised his arm is still attached. What did you see from that game that maybe they can use going into this one? Because to me, I think they can use the short passing game to kind of extend their running game. It's just they're having issues there. But 58 times. No, he cannot throw the ball 58 times and then win another game, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Matt Ryan even said that today that throwing 50 times a game isn't sustainable. I mean, I think the Colts, they're able to find something that worked against a particular opponent in the Jags, in going with that tempo, that no huddle, that quick passing game, kind of limiting the Jags from making substitutions and getting the ball so quickly that those edge guys like Josh Allen weren't able to get to Matt Ryan, and I think and took pressure off of that offensive line, which has struggled so much. But in terms of what the Colts can replicate, right, in terms of heading into this critical game with the Titans, I think first of all, I think they have an offensive line combination that I think can work. They put veteran Dennis Kelly at left tackle. He replaced Bernard Raymond early in that game against the Jags, and having Braden Smith back at right tackle, Matt Pryor at right guard. I think that's at this point. I mean, that's what maybe the fourth or fifth lineup that the Colts have used on the offensive line. But I think with the success, even though we know it was a quick passing game, the scheme was was created in a way to kind of take pressure off of them. I think we did see some big strides and some strong showings from those guys up front with that particular configuration of the offensive line. So I think that's something to build on, especially when you consider not only just in terms of pass protection, but that they could be getting Jonathan Taylor back, who didn't play the last game with that ankle injury. I think there's a chance he gets back out there. And, if they can get those big holes for Jonathan Taylor, I mean, all of a sudden that Colts offense is, a lot better. And again, that takes pressure off of Matt Ryan too. And I know Nyheim Hines was a full participant in practice as well on Wednesday. So he's a guy that's probably going to play. So you have Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines coming back, potentially, having both those guys behind an offensive line that finally showed some promise, and Matt Ryan finally being able to trust those guys up front a little bit more. I think that combination, confidence, if nothing else, is probably the biggest thing that the Colts got out of that game, that we can be a dynamic offense when all the right things are clicking. I mean, they were the worst scoring offense in the NFL before that game against Jacksonville, and they were able to find something that worked. And they do have a lot of dynamic young pass catchers, and like you were saying earlier, they were able to find a lot of success against the Titans in that first matchup. So if that O-line group up front is able to protect for Matt Ryan, give him time to kind of go through his reads and get the ball to those guys like Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman Jr., Mo Alley Cox, Jelani Woods, they can do some damage, because as we said, the Titans' pass defense is very bad. They give up X plays left and right. So I think as long as Matt Ryan has just an ounce of time and he can get the ball to those playmakers, I think the Colts can have a lot of success on Sunday.
All right. Now, of course, you did mention one of the things that we're going to talk about a little later was the something that they can do against the Titans that kind of can help them win the game. But of course, defensively, you're without Shaquille Leonard more than likely. You might be without Shaquille Leonard again. That's not been said or not either way. Your defense did play better last week, but they still gave up 27 points to the Jacksonville Jaguars. How do you expect this defense to attack this Titans offense this week?
Yeah, well, I mean, apart from that Colts game, that Jags game, I mean, the defense has been really good. I mean,
that's true.
Yeah, I mean, they were second in rushing yards allowed per play. I mean, the Jags were able to kind of rattle off those big runs in the first couple quarters. But really after that, they were able to clamp down. They've been pretty good in coverage for the most part. I mean, Stephon Gilmore has showed that he's still a really, really, really good corner, if not an elite corner still. DeForest Buckner, Zaire Franklin, who's really been the lead dog in the middle of their defense, with Shaquille Leonard having missed time, has been dynamic. It's a really strong defense that stops the run. So again, I think I think it's really on the Colts offense, because the Colts defense has been what's been consistent the whole season, apart from the Jacksonville game. That those first 5 games of the season, they gave the offense chances to win. But it was really the offense's ineptitude that kind of ruined a lot of those chances. So I think if the offense finds that consistency, if they can continue to, put points up on the board, if that O-line configuration, like we talked about, if they do have kind of that group that they want to kind of ride forward with, I think the Colts could be a really good team, and I think they have a good chance of beating the Titans. I think it really honestly comes down to their offense, because the defense, I think it's going to be fine. I mean, you look at the Titans. I mean, obviously you have to account for Derrick Henry, but I think in the second half of that first game, I mean, he was held to fewer than 20 rushing yards after having 99 in the first half.
Right,
and then
right.
Those Titans pass catchers don't scare anyone. I mean, Treylon Burks isn't going to be there. Robert Woods is a solid player, and Nick Westbrook-Akina has been reliable, but overall, it's really not a group of pass catchers that really threatens opposing secondaries. And Austin Hooper hasn't really been the tight end that the Titans had anticipated. So yeah, I think this Colts defense is legit. They're like the best scoring defense in the fourth quarter, like late in games. And so I think if the offense can find that consistency, as I said, I think this is a really good team. But that's a huge if, right? Like this is a very particular thing that worked, throwing 58 times, like literally the ball coming out of Matt Ryan's hands in like 0.8 seconds, it felt like. So it kind of depends. I feel like the onus is on that offense.
Got you. Now, as far as the Titans, defensively, we know they have to limit the big plays, which, that's been something that's lit them up, like you spoke about. It's lit them up every single week, whether it's Roger McCreary or it's Caleb Farley. One of those two has gotten a big play thrown on them pretty much each week. So as far as this game, I would think the onus would be on the defensive line to get pressure on Matt Ryan, so that way the big plays don't happen quite as much. Of course, it may be they may be getting the ball out a little bit quicker this week to maybe limit that. But of course, just because Matt Ryan's getting the ball out quick doesn't mean he can't hit deep passes either. As evidenced by the Alec Pierce touchdown that won the game. So would you say that probably is going to be the biggest matchup right there in the trenches? Basically, the defensive line of the Titans versus the offensive line of the Colts that'll probably determine the game?
Yeah, 100%, Mike. If the Titans are able to get pressure on Matt Ryan, get all up in his face, kind of rattle the 37-year-old non-mobile quarterback, they have a pretty good chance of winning this game. I don't remember how many sacks they had on Matt Ryan in that first matchup in Indy off the top of my head. I want to say they had 5, something like that. So I think if they're able to get pressure, help again, like you said, take pressure off of that back end, and get in Matt Ryan's face, that obviously helps a lot. But kind of going back to what I was saying, I think I truly think the Colts have found an offensive line configuration that they can find a lot of success with. So it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of strategy they deploy, right? Because everyone knows that kind of throwing 50 plus times a game isn't sustainable, and obviously there are ways to kind of stop kind of that no huddle quick passing game. So but yeah, it's going to be, did the Colts figure it out with this offensive line, or are the Titans, is Rashad Weaver, Danico Autry, Big Jeff, Bud Dupree, assuming he's playing, and it looks like he's playing, or are those guys going to be able to wreak havoc? So I think that's going to determine this game.
Okay. All right. Now, of course, I'm not going to ask you to predict the game score, and I'm not going to ask you to do that, but I do have something better. I have a game. I have 5 questions for you. I have 2 answers. You got to pick one. Are you ready?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. I'm going to go old school Titans versus new school Titans. Derrick Henry or Eddie George? Which one would you take in terms of their career, career accomplishments so far?
In terms of career accomplishments?
Yeah, because you have Derrick Henry with the 2,000-yard season. You have Eddie George being one of the top rushers in Titans team history. So it's kind of, in those aspects, kind of a little bit of a comparison, maybe of which one you would take if you had to take one of them.
Yeah, that's that's a tough question, because I mean, Eddie obviously has a lot of the records, or if he doesn't have a record in a particular category, he's definitely above Derrick because of the longevity he had with the Titans. But you look at Derrick's 2,000-yard season and kind of what he's meant to the Titans in the present. So based off of that, I mean, I would just say Derrick for just for the purpose of this discussion, just because of what he's meant to the Titans in kind of the present day, the engine he's been, just that mammoth running back, right, who's built like a D end outside linebacker, and has guided has been the key cog to a lot of their success over the last few years. And being a guy who didn't really follow the Titans all that much before coming out to Nashville, I think I just have a better frame of reference on him, even though Eddie George is Eddie George. But I think for that question, I think I think I'll stick with Derrick.
All right. Well, I told you they weren't going to be easy.
That's a hard one.
All right. Now I'm going a little bit, because it is Titans homecoming weekend, so I did kind of have a little bit of a homecoming feel to it, kind of the old and the new. But Derrick Mason is one of the leading wide receivers in Titans history. But of course, AJ Brown was also very, very instrumental in the Titans offense. Based off of their just which one would you say you probably would take? I'm thinking you probably take the elder over the newer, but I'm going to leave that up to you in terms of the wide receivers.
I mean, it kind of depends what you're asking. Derrick Mason's numbers were much better because he's with the Titans longer. It was kind of over a period of time. But I think if you're looking at each as a talent, I mean, I would take AJ. So if we're talking about like career accomplishments and what they meant to the Titans, I would definitely say Derrick Mason. If you're talking like just based on a talent standpoint, like what they can do, I would say AJ.
All right. That's fair. All right. We're going to talk a little bit of safety talk, a little old and new. Of course, Blaine Bishop has been around forever and ever. You've probably seen him out there at Titans practice sometimes. Of course, he was a All-Pro Bowl safety. Kevin Byard, on the other hand, is a Pro Bowl safety and an All-Pro. One was great in terms of pass. It was great in terms of the pass game. The other was known more for being just a physical safety. If you had to pick one guy to kind of build your secondary around, are you building around the physical safety or are you building around the ball hawk in this today's NFL?
A ball hawk. I mean, you look at the way the rules have changed in the NFL. Like, you can't really have those. I feel like you can't really have those enforcers anymore, and so many of the rules now are kind of geared towards offensive players. And I know defensive guys have had a lot of gripes about kind of the rule changes and how you really can't play defense anymore in a lot of ways. And we've seen kind of just more specifically, like kind of with the roughing the passer thing, that's kind of been a debate in kind of present times. But yeah, if you're talking about in today's game against the kind of passing offenses that we've seen, I mean, honestly, in actually this season in the NFL, I think it's kind of gone down a little bit. But I think generally we've seen more prolific passing attacks, more dynamic quarterback receiver tandems than we've seen in kind of previous generations. And you need a guy in the back end who can cover a slot guy or just go from covering a tight end to covering a slot guy to covering a guy on the outside. I think you need a guy who just kind of has a nose for the football. And I think Kevin Byard would kind of be, because of that, KB would be my no-brainer. And he led the league in interceptions in 2017, I believe, with 8 or 9. So, I mean, so for me, Kevin Byard, for that specific question, Mike, I would say him.
All right. Now, of course, I'm going to get out of the old school versus new school, and we're going to go to the 2022 Tennessee Titans. If you had to pick one lineman that's had a bigger effect for the Titans this season so far, are you going to pick Danico Autry or Big Jeff?
That's had a bigger impact.
Yes.
Oh, that's a. You were not lying about these questions. I mean, I think obviously as a talent, you choose Jeff, but I mean, if you're talking just pure impact, I mean, Danico moves all around. He moves everywhere. He plays edge. He plays inside. He's had some really big moments. Like you think of the first Colts game where he had kind of the game clinching sack. Wow, that's a tough one.
It's where the it's where the tough answers and the tough choices have to be made.
Wait, so just so I'm clear on how you framed the question, it was who has had
bigger
the
impact.
bigger impact?
Yes, sir.
I'm just gonna say Jeff. I mean, he's the second best defensive tackle, in my opinion, the second best defensive tackle in the NFL behind Aaron Donald. And it's not just how he wreaks havoc in the run game in the backfield and as a pass rusher, but you see the effort he plays with. Like you look back at film and him chasing down like running backs or receivers when he's kind of been caught up around the line of scrimmage and he turns around and just turns on the jets for a guy his size. I mean, he plays with so much effort for a guy so big that I think, and as big as he's had, as big of an impact as he's had from a statistical standpoint, I think all the things he does that don't show up on the stat sheet, like with that effort, with the leadership. I mean, besides Kevin Byard, Jeffrey Simmons is the leader of that defense. And I know that for a fact. So
right.
For those reasons, I think I'll just go with Jeff.
All right. And the last one, you're probably not going to like this question. As far as the cornerback position, you've got Caleb Farley and you got Roger McCreary. you had to pick one guy to start opposite of Christian Fulton and to build for the next 2 years, would you take Caleb Farley based off of what he's shown you, or Roger McCreary?
Roger McCreary. That's the easiest question you've given me by far. I mean, Roger McCreary has given up a few kind of big plays here and there, but he's been so incredibly consistent for a rookie corner, kind of thrown into the fire. That he's I mean, Christian Fulton is the Titans' best cornerback, but there have been times where it's kind of been, is Roger the Titans' best cornerback? And just from what I saw in practices and how sticky in coverage he's been and his versatility, right, being able to move in the slot. And so, he obviously coming out of what was it? Auburn. Yeah, Auburn. He was known as a man coverage specialist, and I think we've really seen flashes of that. It hasn't all been put together yet, but I think we've seen those glimmers. With Caleb Farley, it's just, I mean, we know the intangibles he has, the size, the speed, the length, all that, but it just hasn't come together for him yet. Every time he's out there, it seems a massive explosive play is given up. Like every game that I can think of off the top of my head, the Bills game, the Commanders game, the Colts game, just really every game that he's had kind of meaningful snaps. I mean, he's kind of given up a really big defensive kind of crippling play. So kind of based off of that, I would definitely say Roger McCreary has been more consistent, although I would say Caleb maybe still has more upside. But I think right now is Roger McCreary. Roger McCreary is a better football player right now.
All right. That's the end of the game, and that's the end of the show. I want to thank you for coming on, Ben. I want to wish you well in all your future endeavors with Fox Sports. They got a great one there. And I would like to give you the floor to kind of talk about what all you're working on, where people can find you on social media. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so foxsports.com is where you can find my work. Just go over to the personalities tab and scroll down to find me. You click on me and you could see all my stories populate under the videos and stories section. As Mike has said, I cover the division, so you see Titan stuff, but you see Colts, Texans, and Jags, and kind of what I write kind of depends on what the storyline is. So yeah, that's where you can find me on Twitter. It's at Ben Y Arthur, one word. So you can follow me there, and yeah, that's the way you can support me and keep a tag on kind of what I've been up to in terms of content. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on again. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You've been tuned in to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We're out.